Imagine you're sitting in a school classroom. Now imagine that this classroom has no windows, a ceiling made of canvas, and walls made out of a mixture of cement and rocks found in the nearby desert. The cool desert breeze is causing your papers to be blown about wildly, and your teacher makes you sit in very strange and uncomfortable chairs. Your teacher also makes you work 16 hours a day and even makes you build the classroom that you're sitting in. Now this is probably a difficult and strange situation to imagine. Strangely enough, though, you don't have to imagine such a thing because it already exists. This place is the world-renowned summer home and architecture studio of the late Frank Lloyd Wright called Taliesin West. This famous summer home and studio in Scottsdale, Arizona is now a World Heritage Site, a tourist attraction, an architectural wonder, and still an architecture studio 86 years after it began construction in 1937. I've always had an infatuation with interesting architecture, and Taliesin West is no exception. During a 2014 vacation to the Grand Canyon, my family decided to visit Taliesin West, and the memories of it have filled my mind for nearly a decade. My recent research refreshed my memory and expanded my knowledge on this incredibly unique location. So why care about some house hidden away in Arizona? Well, it offers an insight into the life and workings of one of the most famous architects in history, as explained in Atlas Obscura, April 16th, 2018. Wright had a unique way of working with his students, who he had lived with him in tents in the desert while they constructed the property. A chance to look at the working style of the greatest American architect, even 65 years after his death, is an incredibly unique opportunity that only Taliesin West offers. Today, I'll educate you on Taliesin West and the role it played in the life of Frank Lloyd Wright. First, I'll give you some background and context on Frank Lloyd Wright. Then, I'll tell you about Taliesin West's construction and use. And finally, I'll tell you about its significance today. So, who is Frank Lloyd Wright? Frank Lloyd Wright is one of the most famous and influential American architects ever. For those unfamiliar with him, he designed more than 500 structures over his 70-year career, which started as a civil engineering student at the University of Wisconsin. Now, if you don't know Wright, you may know some of his works. His more famous works include the Hollyhock House in Los Angeles, the Tokyo Imperial Hotel in Tokyo, Falling Water in Pennsylvania, which is his most famous single house he built, and the Guggenheim Museum in New York. Now, Wright is not only influential because of his architecture, but he's also influential because of his teaching. He had hundreds of apprentices over the 86-year span of his Taliesin Fellowship, in which he would work with architecture students while they learned to create things under the influence of Wright's personal style. Now that you know some about Wright's more influential works, he's one of the most influential architects of all time, and we should be more familiar with his other famous works, like Taliesin West. Now that you know a bit about Frank Lloyd Wright, I can teach you about my main interest, Taliesin West. Now, Taliesin West embodies the elements that define Frank Lloyd Wright, and it began construction in 1937 because he couldn't handle the Wisconsin winters in his late 70s. He became ill, and the moisture of Wisconsin in the winter was just horrific for his health. If he continued to live in his Taliesin house, the original one in Wisconsin, he would basically fall ill during every winter. So he decided to move to Arizona and begin constructing Taliesin West. So some of the designs that are characteristic of Wright are on display in Taliesin West. First, the prairie style, which consists of long horizontal lines in the building's construction that is reminiscent of the American prairie because it's so flat and spacious. And then his other focus was the organic focus, which Wright liked to build things specifically for the area they were going to be in and to use materials in that local area to reduce costs, first off, and to keep the building authentic. So, in Taliesin West, he decided to use desert masonry, which was building the walls out of concrete and rocks he found on the Arizona floor. And he also built Taliesin West for the Arizona summers by building the roofs out of canvas to protect everyone inside from the heat, to disperse it. And those canvas roofs also doubled as an excellent light source for all of his architecture students while they were creating their architectural drawings. As you can see, maybe difficult to see, but up here is that canvas roof, Um, Here is the desert masonry, and if you look at every chair in Taliesin West, they're designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. Now, he may not have built them himself, but he designed them, and he was very particular about his style. And there's also a piano right in the middle there, in this living room. That's because Frank Lloyd Wright just absolutely loved music. I think there's roughly five pianos in Taliesin West. Now, it's not a gigantic property, but there's like a piano in almost every room. It's incredible. He even has one built away into a wall, and that wall is like encasing the piano, and it acts as the case for the piano, amplifying the sound. It's incredible. Now, Taliesin West is incredibly unique, but it's also much like other works from Wright. So it's an old house made out of rocks. Why should we care about it now? So Taliesin West has a very influential past and continues to be influential today. The Taliesin Fellowship and its members have been hard at work for 86 years. Taliesin West housed young aspiring architects 86 years ago and continues to do so today. These Taliesin West Fellowship members have to build their own living spaces just like those who started in 1937, even today. So they have to build their own little dormitories. It's like if you've ever seen a tiny house, it's kind of something like that, but with more of an organic focus that makes the buildings all unique. They're very interesting to see. They're kind of scattered around the property. Some of the students walk in the night back to their dorms like a mile from the house, in basically in the middle of Arizona wilderness. It's pretty incredible. But Taliesin West also became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2018, along with a bunch of other Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. Now, though you may think it's just some building, this building has incredible, rich, and fruitful history. Today, I hope I taught you more about one of my favorite pieces of architecture. First, I taught you about Frank Lloyd Wright, then I taught you about how Taliesin West was made, and I finished by telling you about Taliesin West today. I hope you can one day take a trip out to Scottsdale, Arizona to pay a visit to Taliesin West, or at least one of Wright's other, closer works, and connect with the architecture like I have. Thank you.